Welcome to Face2Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face2Face. So my next interview is with writer, director, producer Jonathan Jakubowicz, and he is here today to talk about his new film Resistance, which is would have been opening live across North America and around the world in movie theaters, but is now available on iTunes and Prime and in a variety of different places. It's called Resistance. It's a film you're going to want to see. It's about World War II, and more importantly, though, it's about the art of silence. How's that? It's about Marcel Marceau and the great mime who was also very much a part of the French resistance during World War II, pushing back against the Nazis in a variety of different ways. And this is a beautiful, compelling, and important film. You need to see this for a variety of reasons. And there are a few scenes that are, as I often want to say, worth the price of admission. Just never mind the film as a whole, as a piece, but as a story, but a couple of moments with Jesse Eisenberg's characters, especially where he connects in a way not only with the people that he's working with in the film, but also with the audience. So I hope you are going to get to a theater near you, which I'm assuming is either your living room or your basement. Get some popcorn, whatever it is you do when you watch a film, and check this one out. It's called Resistance. And coming right up, this interview with Jonathan. Jonathan and I touch on the problem of evil. We talk about mime and the art of silence and about pushing back and what real resistance actually is. And during this COVID crisis, we talk about the inspiration, that can be found in a film like this, and how important these kinds of moments are for us, not only as individuals, but, as communities and as the globe, as human beings, really. We talk about neighbors on getting very practical and connecting with people that we've never even met before as a result of what's going on currently around the world. And we talk about the film and about how important it really is to create art and how important it is to make the invisible visible. And we all have ways of doing that. We all have ways of stepping into it. This is a film about pushing back, and it's a film that is so relevant in so many meaningful ways. You're gonna I hope you're gonna enjoy the conversation, but I know you're gonna enjoy the film. So make sure you step into that as soon as you possibly can. And don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about my speaking and my writing. You can purchase a copy of Real Change is Incremental there. I would really appreciate it if you did that. Also, would love for you to leave a review on iTunes for Face2Face. I'm trying to collect those, and actually going to create a contest in the very near future as well around that, but stay tuned. But please do, if you get a chance, leave a review on iTunes for Face2Face. And if you want to support the work we do, you can do that through Patreon. And if you can't afford to do that, I totally get that. Don't forget, you can also advertise with us. We have a newsletter that we send out monthly. We have a database. You can advertise through banner ads and shout-outs during interviews, and there's a variety of ways of coming on board and getting involved. So thanks for your time, and thanks for listening. And don't forget rabble.ca. I also appear there. It's a platform where you can find not only Face2Face, but a whole host of other interviews and podcasters and bloggers, journalists, news for the rest of us. That's on Rabble. And coming right up, Jonathan Jakubowicz talking about his new film, Resistance. Well, welcome to Face2Face. We're joined by a very special guest today. We have with us Jonathan Jakubowicz is here to talk about his new film, Resistance. I'm excited to have him on Face2Face. And why don't we just start with a greeting? Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and hi to all your audience. I'm excited.
Yes, thanks. And we find ourselves, I guess, I don't know about quarantine, but certainly isolated. I'm here just not too far out of Toronto, and my understanding is you're in Los Angeles. How are things there? I mean, obviously reading the news every day, and frankly, reading too much news. I don't know about you, but what's it like where you're at, COVID wise?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously tough. I do think it's a little less tough in LA because it's not so dense of a city, so everybody is usually in quarantine anyway. And people want
Right.
everybody is in their bubble in their cars and in between home and jobs. But yeah, I mean you do see everything empty and it's kind of surreal. It's a very strange moment and I don't know if anybody could have imagined what we are all going through, and I'm in shock. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, I've been working for 3 years on a movie on World War II, and it's about these civilians who decide to put everything aside and risk their lives to save the life of innocent children, and to see the world as it is right now basically stopping and hoping for civilian doctors to save us. And it's really moving, and it's really amazing when you see all this military might and all these tanks sometimes moving into cities as if they could shoot a virus. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing the military can do right now, only help doctors. There's you cannot nuke the virus. And I feel in a way the message of the movie resonates with the message of this whole horrifying experience that we're living right now, which at the end of the day, we are biological beings, and when hatred is a threat, and there is at the end of the day the possibility of extermination, we only have civilians, we only have humans to help us. And I think it's a movie that can be very inspiring for this moment, because it was a much worse situation what they went through not so long ago, and they rose to the occasion. And I always intended it as an inspiring story, and the fact that it's being released in a moment where humanity needs more inspiration than ever, at least in our lifetime. I think it really is a strange coincidence that I have to be grateful for, and I hope it helps people go through what we're going through. Stopping and hoping for civilian doctors to save us. And it's really moving, and it's really amazing when you see all this military might and all these tanks sometimes moving into cities as if they could shoot a virus. I mean, there's nothing the military can do right now, only help doctors. There's you cannot nuke the virus. And I feel in a way the message of the movie resonates with the message of this whole horrifying experience that we're living right now, which at the end of the day, we are biological beings, and when hatred is a threat, and there is at the end of the day the possibility of extermination, we only have civilians, we only have humans to help us. And I think it's a movie that can be very inspiring for this moment, because it was a much worse situation what they went through not so long ago, and they rose to the occasion. And I always intended it as an inspiring story, and the fact that it's being released in a moment where humanity needs more inspiration than ever, at least in our lifetime. I think it really is a strange coincidence that I have to be grateful for, and I hope it helps people go through what we're going through.
Well, I mean, yeah, all very well said, and I think a beautiful introduction to the film. And by the way, congratulations. The film is called Resistance, for those of you who haven't heard of it, and you're going to be able to see a trailer on the website on Face to Face. And as far as I know, Jonathan, the film's coming out on iTunes on March 31st, and I'm pretty sure we'll be publishing the interview that day. So I wish you well with that and the release digitally and on demand and so on. And I hope, honestly, congratulations on the film. I hope everyone sees it. It's compelling. It's harrowing at times, and I think you're bang on. I think it's very inspirational. I mean, so much of it is inspirational and lots to talk about. But I love that last sequence, or near sort of not last sequence, but sort of near the end of the film on the train, which is a crazy experience with the children and the Nazis and Barbie and so on. And the old man turns and says, would you just leave them alone? And because I'm an old man and I know good kids when I see them. And I just thought that was such a beautiful human moment, and a real invitation for us all to kind of step in and pay attention to each other and to our neighbors. Is that a little too idealistic, or what do you think?
I don't think it's idealistic. When you look at the stories of the war, there were many instances where people put their own lives in the line to help strangers, and my own family. I mean, I just showed the movie to my aunt, whose story partly inspired the story of the girl that Marcel has the biggest relationship with in the movie. My aunt survived the war in a Catholic orphanage, just like you see the girl in the movie.
Right.
And aside from remembering the crimes and the extermination, she has always made a case to instill in me the notion that there were many who helped, and that many of those who survived thanks to those who helped, including her. She was taken in an orphanage, then she was adopted by a family, and she wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for people who had no interest in help, and no personal interest and nothing to gain personally from helping a little girl, but they did it because it was the right thing to do. And I don't think that it's too idealistic to think that humans can be good in the right moment. There's definitely evil in the world, and I think the key, and this is something Marcel said when he was he was awarded with the Wallenberg Medal of Honor. The key is to make sure that the good people are always the majority, and I think that's really the way I see the world. And I think now that we have an enemy that is not a person, and it's not even a living being, it's the virus. It's a good moment to see that at the end of the day we only have each other, and we can count on that, because that's what's happening right now.
So I love the paradox of telling this story through somebody who became the world's greatest mime, Marcel Marceau, working with what is it called, the art of silence.
Yeah.
And so here's this guy, and I mean, you must have had that. Jesse Eisenberg plays Marcel. I'd love to hear about that experience too, by the way, working with somebody like Jesse on this film. He obviously speaks a fair bit in the film, and we see him doing some mime and several beautiful sequences. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that paradox, that juxtaposition of here's this guy supposedly about mime and being silent, and yet fighting back. Like, I mean, this, by the way, the scene with the variety acts in the square, and I'm not going to give it away, but the way they push back is it's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, I think there is nothing more unexpected when you think of a war hero than a mime.
I know. It's just, that's not what first comes to mind, right?
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was fascinating from the second I heard about the story. It's the opposite of the traditional war hero, and that's why I had General Patton introduce him, because the notion that General Patton of all people admires a mime, is so unique, and I think it's part of what's special about this story. It's this guy who is not trained for for this. He's not even interested in this. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no plan. But yes, yet he has this humanity and these tools that he, you know, uses for art, but suddenly become helpful to save innocent children.
Right.
And the notion that he finds his art through this process, I think it's what's so special about the movie as well, because we often see the obstacles in our life as those things that are stopping us from becoming who we want to become. And Marcel clearly sees that at the beginning of the movie. The war is stopping him from becoming the great artist he wants to become. But in the end, it is this experience that changes him and that turns him into the artist he wants to become, and helps him fulfill his destiny. There was a moment when we shot the first pantomime you see in the movie, when Jesse's performing for the children. He came to me after we shot and he told me, I think I just understood why it was so important for Marcel to go through this experience. And Jesse at that point had been miming for 7 8 months, and but this was the first time he did it in front of the children. And he told me, I up until now I've been focusing on the miming, but in this scene I was focusing on making them laugh. And the moment you realize that your art is not to fulfill yourself, but it is to fulfill your audience, you become a real artist. And from I have to say, Jesse was never as good as he was in the scene before that scene. And it really was because he was reacting to their laughter, and the kids were laughing at what he was doing, and that made him happy. And then he got inspired and he started trying different things that we didn't even rehearse, and then they worked. And it was a beautiful thing. And I think it's the essence of art in general, but of Marceau in particular. He was able to always get the audience to wherever he wanted because he was focused on them.
So, Jonathan, tell me, so focusing on the audience is important as an artist. You talk about Jesse and how he had that revelation, and I mean what a cool moment that must have been for him, rehearsing for 7 to 8 months as this mime, this new craft that he was working on, and then to actually connect with these kids. And I mean, really, I mean, isn't it a comment about art and relationship to your audience, but relationship to others? I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that. It must have been a really wonderful moment for Jesse, but also you as a writer, director, producer. How does that relate to the work that you do?
Well, it's it's very special when you. I mean, one of the things I love the most about directing is collaborating, because there is a sense of authorship when you do a film, but the truth is there is so many people that are involved in the same creation, and the relationship I have with my actors is usually very close. And I tend to feel that there is a certain point in which the actors take over a character and know the character better than I do.
Right. In a way, they almost direct themselves.
And I mean, I don't think it's that they direct themselves. It's that I start directing the character instead of the actor.
Oh, okay, fascinating.
The actor has already embraced the role and the person who I wrote and the person we've been working on, and now he is that person. And if I am directing, it's between the boundaries of that person and where I think that person can go. But there is. They start giving me insight about the character that I never had. And I think that's when you know that what you created or what you were creating is making sense. The worst thing is when an actor comes to you in the middle of a scene and tells you, I don't think I would do that. I don't see why I would say that. I mean, that's always the biggest challenge as a writer director, because the worst thing you can do then is impose it. It's like, well, that's what's written, that's what we gotta do. It's, you have to listen to them, because if they're saying that they've been inhabiting this body and this mind for months or weeks, and there's always a point when they say that, and there's always a conversation to be had about it. And I always did it, and I really love doing that with actors. And I do think of the audience constantly, and I think that is the vantage point that you have as a director, that they may know the character at that point better than you, but you also you have the mind of the audience as a priority. What does the audience know about this character? And it's always a balance to sustain. Is what does the audience know about Marcel at this point that Marcel may know about himself, or Jesse may know about Marcel, but the audience doesn't. So it's a very exciting but also very mental exercise. And I think, one of that moment when Jesse told me that is pure artistic bliss, because you feel that
right.
You're doing something that the whole point of the story was just revealed in the very essence of making it. It's not that we wrote it and we knew that the kids affected Marcel, and that's the whole point of the story, but understanding why and how, and experiencing it by the very act of performing it. In the case of Jesse, I think it's as pure as it gets for making movies, and I was really, really thrilled. And I see it when I see the scene, and when I see how people are reacting right now to the scene. The movie already opened in the United States, and I'm starting to get incredibly beautiful letters from the audience, and a lot of people mentioned that scene in particular when performs for the kids for the first time. And there's great acting, and then there's real emotion, and what Jesse's experiencing there goes beyond great acting. It's real emotion. He's genuinely excited. He's genuinely happy that he's able to make these children laugh, and there's, when you can get that on a scene, it's always as good as it gets. And
Jonathan, isn't that sense of, again, that invisible becoming visible that you and I talked about a little offline as well, and that makes an appearance, no pun intended, in the film too? This sense of any great artist is trying to draw those experiences out of not only the people watching, but the experience, and I guess for the artists themselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, directing a movie, acting in a movie, writing a movie, it's all an exercise on insanity, I mean.
Right. And let me guess, you're already working on your next film.
I mean, you always, you're writing a scene, you're putting together a scenario, a situation, and then an actor is going to pretend he's that person, and everybody's sort of losing his mind in a way and putting at the service of a story. The good actors are never acting, they are inhabiting the emotions, and I, that's in a way the definition of insanity. You're becoming another person, and you're feeling what that other person is feeling. I can't tell you how many times I work with great actors who, after an emotional scene, keep crying for 2 minutes after we cut.
Wow.
They are truly, genuinely feeling those emotions, and I think that is, that when Marcel says make the invisible visible, is the only path I always feel is the only effective path toward making the invisible visible and genuinely moving the audience is by making it real, by reaching reality, and not pretending this is reality, but actually pursuing reality and getting the actors to inhabit that place. I mean, I often try to shoot on location. I often if it's cold, it's cold. Embrace the cold. And some of the actors sometimes are shaking with cold in the scene, but that always helps them. They're all actors are willing to go for it, because there's nothing worse than acting in a soundstage,
Right.
and all you see green screen,
Detached.
that stuff. And a lot of these actors that I've worked with have done like massive studio movies, and they constantly tell me how much more exciting is to do a film with a limited budget, where you're really rushing to get the scene, and really making sure every moment you have of the day is spent in performance and getting the scene, and not just lighting a massive soundstage
Jonathan, I don't know if you've seen Terrence Malick's new film A Hidden Life, but it definitely shares some similarities to your film and this whole idea of pushing back and resisting evil. But he talks a great deal about just how the actors were situated in no sets. The set was the village. And, to your point about the reality of it and being, in the middle of it, very fresh, very in your face almost.
Yeah, I mean, I also, it's because how I started in my first film, Sequestro Express. None of the actors was a professional actor. They were real kids from the street, and I also did it in Hands of Stone, where the kid who plays Roberto Duran when he's a kid was a kid from the street, and a lot of the kids in Resistance are not actors. They were kids I recruited from the Jewish high school in Prague, and I think, I mean, it's something I also heard from Robert De Niro when we started casting Hands of Stone. There was this role of the Panamanian trainer that was to share the corner with De Niro, and he himself told me, what about Voodoo, the guy from Sequestro Express, who, when I met him, had never acted in his life, was a former kidnapper in real life, and he was playing a kidnapper in Sequestro Express, had no formal training as an actor. And I tell De Niro that, and it is, me coming from Sequestro Express, which was a tiny movie, working for the first time with Robert De Niro, and he tells me, well, that who cares? Neither was Joe Pesci when I met him, and we did Raging Bull. Ever acted in his life. And sometimes people who are real are better to get them to perform than people who are not and went to a good acting school, because all they have is technique, but they don't have the life experience. And it's very interesting, because there is a craft to acting that doesn't necessarily is the only route, and it is sometimes a very good route. And I have to say that in Resistance we work with some phenomenal European actors who have done the academic route and have gone to school, and in Europe is different. They really have acting academies and university programs to learn performance. And I do have to say that the experience with the Europeans have been phenomenal, because they have tools and to reach the desired emotion and all that stuff. But sometimes, there's the other version in which the academia is not the best route, and you just need to find the person who knows the emotion and who can get there, and then all you have to do is just push them to be disciplined and to get them there.
I love the distinction of experience over craft. I mean, obviously it's both and I would imagine any great actor would say it's you need to know some of the rules to break them, etc. But what did Oscar Wilde say? Experience is the name we give to our mistakes. It's almost like the more mistakes you make, the better writer you're going to be. If you want to be a good writer, then go and live life, and then you're going to have things to write about. And I think that absolutely makes a great deal of sense. Hey, we only have a few minutes left, and this is a big question, but the way you portray Barbie and the Nazis, and just the way you portray evil in the film is very stark, and it's harrowing, and it's evil, and it's violent, and it's in your face. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that juxtaposition. I mean, here you've got this, and I just think it's so beautiful. Again, we've got this mime who's into the art of silence, who really, in a sense, doesn't do anything, and yet, he becomes the guy who pushes back. It's just so beautiful. Can you talk about that decision that you must have made to say, no, I want to personify evil in this way through Matthias's portrayal of Barbie, and yet you made him human?
Yeah, I think it's an essential aspect of the film that I think there's nothing scarier than realizing that true evil is human, and because it's very easy to simply dismiss Nazis as monsters, but the fact is these were human beings. This was an entire nation that was aligned behind this ideology, and I am a firm believer that in order to avoid things like this happening again, is to realize that they were humans, and the only way to avoid this is to be vigilant of humans, because these weren't aliens, these weren't monsters, these were people who were completely convinced of something. And when you spend time in Germany, and one of the reasons I wanted a German actor to portray Barbie is because they have clearly spoken to their grandparents, and they have studied their history, and they have a very particular relationship to the event. It's almost as intense as the relationship Jews have, because instead of feeling that your grandparents were victims of the worst crime in history, they feel their grandparents were perpetrators of the biggest crime in history, and that's not easy to handle either. But what Matthias always told me from the beginning is that the notion of a nation of Nazis, where all these people thought they were heroes, where the economy was going well, where they really thought they were better than the rest, and no one can stop them, and they could control all of Europe, and they could expand, and that the Nazis were taking care of them. It's very important to convey, and I thought it was an essential part of Klaus Barbie as well. When you read about Barbie, he had a daughter. The daughter went to his trial after he was captured and spent the whole trial saying he's innocent, he's a great father, he was just following orders, he wasn't as important as you guys think he is, and the notion, her conviction till the last moment after he is condemned for crimes against humanity without any doubt is unbelievable. And I think it's very important to show how far human beings can go in hatred and the determination of doing harm to others that they dehumanize because they're not like them.
It's really quite remarkable. It really comes out it comes out in many scenes in the film, and Matthias's portrayal is brilliant, by the way. But the sequence in the woods, the commitment to following through, to the links that this group of Nazis will go to capture these children, to get to these people, to kill them ultimately, is just astounding, right? That passionate sense of commitment to, I guess, what they believed at the time was right. And then it comes out too with his wife, where he basically, that scene where where he says, "You have no idea what I'm putting up with here. I'm trying to make our world a better place." Right? It's astounding.
The sooner I get done, the more time I'm going to be able to spend with you.
With my family. Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, the contrast, the juxtaposition, the problem of evil is many, I suppose, people have said there's no way to understand evil. The only thing you can do is resist it. And I think that's what's so beautiful about your film, and it comes out in the title. And again, congratulations on the film. And we've got just a couple minutes, and you start the film with living happily ever after. Tell me a little bit about the hope that you must still feel. We started earlier on in the conversation about, your desire for this film to be an inspiration. And at the time of the crisis we're currently finding ourselves in with COVID and so on, do you believe we're going to live happily ever after?
Do I believe it now?
Yeah. Do you believe it now? Do you believe it? Is it something to reach for?
I think we are going to pass through this and come out stronger. It's a very difficult moment, but I think in a way it's a moment to unite. I experienced it already in Los Angeles. I've seen neighbors who have never said hi for 10 years and are saying hi and are being nice to each other. It's unbelievable. And I think everything happens for a reason. I think we're going to be shocked by how horrific this epidemic is, but I also think we're going to take more care of each other afterwards. Most of the health system in the civilized world was developed after the flu pandemic of the 20s. There is this moments in time is when people realize that you do nothing by being privileged if other people have nothing and can get the epidemic and give it to you. So there is a moment in which you realize that the health of everyone is important even for selfish reasons. If you don't care about the others, that's okay, but just care about yourself and you realize that you need the others to be safe and to be healthy as well. And I do think we are, we're gonna be, I don't know if happy ever after. I think history is full of difficult situations. There is an evolution, and I think we do get better all the time, and I tend to be optimistic. Is one upside of having worked on a movie set in the Holocaust for the last 3 years. Everybody thought the world was going to hell, and I thought the world is actually doing well.
Right. Well, I think, just to sort of bring us full circle back to the beginning of our conversation, and that, you mentioning how you hoped that this film Resistance was going to be an inspiration, not only during this time, but for audiences everywhere, and for in perpetuity, I guess you could say. And I hope everyone does get to see the film. It's a great film. It's an important film, and just to be clear, available on iTunes now for rental, is it not, Jonathan?
Yeah, iTunes, Apple TV, Amazon Prime. It's basically in all the platforms that people have access to.
There's no excuse to not see this film right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's exactly right. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time today. We've been talking with Jonathan Jakubowicz about his new film, Resistance, available on iTunes. Check it out. And I was going to say coming soon to a theater near you, but it's already at the theater near you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time today, Jonathan.
Thank you. Take care.